Hey everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter, and I am here with a couple of card projects for you today featuring some new products from My Favorite Things. I'm going to be using the Stars and Wishes die set along with the Blueprints 25, as well as this abstract cover-up. Now these cover-ups are really cool because you can see here, this is an A2 size card front. It covers like the entire thing, so it makes for a really cool backdrop on your cards. Now the cards I'm creating today are kind of both watercolor themed, and so I am starting out with a watercolor background on some Ranger watercolor paper, and I like the Ranger because it's nice and bright white, and I'm also using these Kuretake Gansai Tombi watercolors in like a bright pink, an orange, and a yellow. And you can see I wet the entire watercolor cardstock using some clean water. And now I'm just taking this round brush and just dropping in some of the color. Now keep in mind as I go along here, I can add more color and I can add more water to get the look that I'm going for. But I kind of want these all to kind of blend into each other. So you can see I'm going in and dropping in the color into the wet watercolor cardstock. And if I get too much, I just add a little bit more water and I kind of keep going back and forth. Now I did get some excess water pooling around the edges, so I just took a clean paper towel and kind of sopped that up. And if you can let it air dry, it's probably best, but I'm impatient, so I hit it with my heat tool. And you can see how much those colors really dried back and created a really soft and beautiful background. Once that piece was good and dry, I went ahead and prepped the entire surface of that card front with some EK Success powder tool because I wanted to do a little embossing. And I'm using this Simply Circles background stamp from My Favorite Things, and I'm inking it up in some Versamark ink. And then I will take my card front to the stamp. Now, when I'm stamping these large backgrounds, this is my preferred method because I really feel like I can get that ink transferred very well. And I'll just keep one hand in place and move the other around to get that ink all transferred, and then I'll add some white embossing powder over the entire thing. Now, this is one of those instances where I wish my white embossing powder container was just a little bit larger. And once I got that all covered, I went ahead and heat set it with my heat tool, and this created just a really cool effect on that watercolor background. So now it's time to go ahead and cut my sentiment, and I'm using the Stars and Wishes die set here, and I am using my Precision Base Plate by Sizzix to cut through this really thick glitter cardstock. And then I'll use the Count the Stars die set as well. It's kind of like the matte set to this die set to cut a shadow out of some vellum. And this little banner here is from the Blueprints 25 die set. Now that die set has a ton of really great basic shapes to use on all kinds of cards. So you can see I kind of layered those up, the glitter cardstock on top of the vellum shadow, and then I put that on top of the white banner. And I cut a stitch circle from the My Favorite Things Stitch Circles dies and placed that because I really felt like it needed a grounding spot. That sentiment needed some place to kind of sit and be grounded. So I just kind of adhered that circle on there and tucked it around the back to create just a little focal point for this to sit on. It kind of mutes that watercolor too and just really helps that sentiment to stand out. So I put my banner piece and sentiment on there with some foam adhesive, and now I'm just using these little glitter stars, and I cut them from that same glitter cardstock. And those little stars, that die is included in the Blueprints 25 as well, and I'm just scattering these around like confetti. Now, I felt like this needed a little something more, so I'm using that large stitched rectangle from the Blueprints 25. It's the same size as an A2 card, so I cut that out of some vellum, and I actually cut a double layer there because I'm going to use it on the other card as well. And I gave a really generous dose of some foam adhesive to adhere that down onto the vellum piece, and then adhered that onto a white card base, and that finishes up the first card. I did sneak some gold thread in behind that sentiment as well, just for an extra finishing touch. So for my second card, I'm starting out with the Myriad Dots background stamp, and I'm inking it up in some black My Favorite Things hybrid ink. And I'm going to stamp this off because I want it to be a little bit muted. And then I'm taking just a piece of Nina Solar White cardstock and stamping that on there. Once again, taking the card front to the background stamp because that's the way I prefer to do it, and then rubbing it all over using a piece of scratch paper. Now, this, I have my Precision Base Plate again. This takes the place of the bottom cutting plate on your Sizzix sandwich. And I found that when I was cutting this abstract cover-up, I really needed that base plate in there to get a nice clean cut. You can see it was pretty hard to work it through, but in the end it worked out great, and this glitter cardstock cut like butter, and I was able to pop those pieces out. So this is that vellum, that second piece of vellum, and I want to kind of stack these up and kind of diffuse those dots that are in the background. But first I wanted to create kind of a watercolor effect on this vellum. And I'm doing that with some Copic markers. And I'll list the colors over on my blog, but they're kind of just like a light aqua and a dark aqua. And you can see I'm just scribbling them in there, and then I'm kind of blending out the darker color with the lighter marker. And if I feel like it got blended out too much in one spot, then I could go back in with the dark marker and add some more spots. And this just kind of creates a really soft, multi-colored background, kind of a watercolor effect. But here is where it really gets a really cool watercolor effect. I'm taking an alcohol swab. This is what we nurses use to give shots in the hospital, but I didn't take it from the hospital I work at. You can buy them in the drug section, and I'm just tapping all over that, and it kind of diffuses it even more and gives it a watercolor. It moves those Copic markers because those are alcohol-based markers, and it just creates this really cool watercolor effect. So once I got that all ready, you can see how gorgeous this abstract cover-up looks on top of that vellum. I just adhered it down with a little tape runner adhesive. And then my patience must have been great this day, because I am cutting down some foam adhesive to tuck behind that abstract cover-up, and then adhering that over that myriad dot stamped piece that I created earlier, just to kind of create multiple layers and some diffusing effects. It just really adds a whole lot to this card. So I've cut the same wish sentiment, but this time I've cut it from some black cardstock, and I'm once again layering it up on some vellum, which is from the Count the Stars die set. And I'm just used some tape runner adhesive to do that, and I put some foam adhesive behind that sentiment and adhered it onto that banner that was once again cut with the Blueprints 25 die. And I adhered that entire banner piece with a little bit more foam adhesive. And now I'm just adding some sparkling clear sequins from Pretty Pink Posh. And I used my Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish to do that. Now I was looking at this card and it was beautiful and sparkly, but I felt like it needed just something a little more. So I cut these banner shapes using the Blueprints 25 die set again out of some pattern papers, and I just trimmed them down and then tucked them up under the banner so that they were kind of draping down from that banner. And for the final finishing touch, I just added a nice layer of glossy accents over that wish sentiment to make it just glossy and good. I hope you enjoyed these watercolor themed cards featuring some new products from My Favorite Things. As always, I'll have links to all the products over at my blog as well as in the description at YouTube. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope you have a fabulous day.